partaked in our worldly beer tonight? Two people? Okay, I have two, and it is a lot stronger than I thought it was going to be. I apologize for this in advance, but thank you for joining us. We are ProductTank RTP. For those of you, how many of you are first time? Excellent, that's great. How many of you have been here more than twice? Cool. So mostly first time people, but about an even split, which is awesome. So just to tell you a little bit about us, ProductTank is essentially meetups like these for product people, by product people. We are completely managed and supported by Mind the Product. It's an international organization. Now I just checked last night, they're in over 175 cities worldwide. If you ever travel, just look up if this event is going to be on near you. It's an amazing way to get connected to over 150,000 product people. So this is actually a pretty good sized one, not just for us, but for ProductTank overall. I think the largest get around 200 people at a particular event. So it's a pretty intimate environment in general. And it's a great way to meet people, find new jobs, and just connect. So our mission is to learn, to share, and inspire each other. So ProductTank RTP in particular does a TikTok event. So this is one of our content meetups where we have a few wonderful speakers today. And then every other month we do networking meetups that are all just happy hours. Vaco, one of our local recruiting sponsors, just has an open tab, and it's a great way to have a little more here. So in general, we try and hit content meetups. We survey people, so if you have ideas or if you want to speak at a meetup like this and educate your fellow people or get feedback on an idea, or host a workshop, there's all sorts of formats that we can do. We're thinking about lightning talks, so if you have an idea, just contact me for the meetup, or you can email me as well. Just come see me after the event. But today is a special day. It's called World Product Day. So Mind the Product, yeah, Mind the Product is putting this on. So over the past, I think we're almost at the end of it. It ends on LA time, West Coast. And so for 32 hours in over 40 countries, 91 different meetups have occurred during this time window. So just to get a sense of that, we have one of the founders here at Mind the Product to talk really briefly about it.
World Product Day 2019. It's amazing to see so many of you gathered together to celebrate our product. Well, I can't actually see you, but I think you're there. You're joining hundreds of thousands of passionate product people all over the world who are taking the day to get together online and in person to reflect, share, and learn about building products people love. I started ProductTank 9 years ago for this very reason, to meet other product people, because it can be a lonely job sometimes. In any team, there's usually only one of you. All the stakeholders are ganging up on you, and it's hard to find enough peers to share with and learn from. And in a startup, it's even more lonely. So way back in 2010, I got some beer money from my boss, found two amazing co-founders, convinced two of my friends to speak, and started the very first ProductTank right here in London. And product is a lot less lonely now. From just 25 people at that first ProductTank, there are now hundreds of thousands of members across ProductTank meetups in 180 cities around the world. A few years later, we founded Mind the Product to bring together those communities and continue the conversation online in our blog, eventually at our annual conferences in Hamburg, London, Manchester, San Francisco, and Singapore. Since then, we have added world-class product training and workshops, the world's largest Slack community for product people, a job board, and an incredible weekly hand-curated newsletter. And we do all of this because we're still learning something new at every single meetup and every single conference. We are all united by the same challenges and the same difficulties in this craft, but how we tackle them is different. And so we can only learn, and we can only get better by coming together, sharing what we've learned, and furthering our craft together. As amazing as it is to have these local communities and ways for product people to connect, share, and learn from each other, we wanted to do more. So last year, we launched World Product Day to bring together our giant global community and celebrate our craft for just one day. And today is that day. So take some time to reflect on your craft, to reflect on your path, your challenges, and your learnings. And most importantly, think about how you can help each other to get better. Thank you for helping us celebrate World Product Day 2019 and keeping that all-important product conversation going. Whether you're one of the first ProductTank meetups kicking off the day in New Zealand, finishing us off 20 hours later on the west coast of the US, or any one of the 90 meetups in between, you are all part of something amazing. Have a great event, and I hope to see you soon. Hi.
So going on right now, even though some of these are in a different time zone, for some reason everyone in South America starts an hour later. I think siesta or something like that. I don't know. They have something else worked out. It's great. But there are over, what was that, 18 or so, 15, 16, including us, meetups going on right at this moment. They'll have live streams and clips and all that other kind of stuff afterwards if you're interested in what's going on in other cities. And Curtis here is actually from the Orlando chapter and has joined us for today to kind of spread the love of what's going on in product tanks around the world. So they're going on right now, right? Yep. Awesome. It's very cool. None of this could have been possible without our sponsors. So first sponsor that we have is hosting us in this lovely location, beautiful skyline, except for that new building that kind of ruined it all. Walk Me. So Marie, you want to say a few words?
Welcome everyone to Walk Me Raleigh. I'm so happy to be celebrating World Product Day with you here today. Walk Me really has a deep and continuous history in product-led growth, and it's actually used by product leaders daily. So for those of you who don't know, Walk Me is a guidance and engagement tool that drives user behavior that you want to see within websites, apps, mobile, and desktop applications alike. So if you want to learn more, feel free to talk to me after our great presenters speak. And I've also left my business card here if you want to follow up afterwards as well.
They have a really, really awesome platform. Did you guys trademark digital adoption? Or is that?
We just led it.
Yeah, just led the digital adoption. So guides and how to get users to actually use what we build is always the challenge. So it's great. At the same time, we have User Voice who provided these amazing 9% alcoholic beverages. It's great. And someone who's enjoying that is Scott, who has some gnomes from User Voice.
Yes. Hello everyone, I'm Scott from User Voice. I'm the Senior Product Manager at User Voice. We're software for gathering feedback from your customer base. So product managers or product stakeholders can hear from people, conduct product discovery, to talk to people, to hone the ideas, and figure out what you might want to put on your product roadmap. So if you're interested, come and grab me. Otherwise, thanks for being part of the community.
User Voice has some awesome stuff coming out as well. How many people here use User Voice or WalkMe? Anybody? You? Greenfield. Perfect. Free trials. Both are excellent platforms. I've used them, and I'll talk a little bit about us as a company. So I'm the founder and CEO of Vaporware. Despite the name, we actually release software. We have a process that helps startups and mid-market businesses get to market and actually release products in just about 4 weeks. So we think we're pretty proud of that, but we're product managers, designers, and developers. We've seen and helped sell both of these tools, so we wouldn't have invited them to sponsor without that. So to kick us off, though, Darrell, are you going to go first? I'll go
first.
Excellent. So, Darrell, you're an investor in ProductHQ.
That's right.
Correct. Excellent. You have a full-time job at.
SAS.
Yes.
Right down the street.
Yes. So, has anyone heard of a small company called SAS? No, it's scary. Okay. No, but he's here to talk to us about product prioritization. So, switch it over to your slides and I'll let you take it away.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
Thanks, Darrell.
Good day, everyone. Again, my name is Darrell. I first wanted to start off by saying that I think most people learn best by failures. I know that sounds a bit odd, but I'm a little unconventional. So I want to share with you about feature prioritization, but I want to share with you some of my biggest professional failures. I've got 4 kids. You're more than welcome to have one if you want. And I've learned that they learn a lot by don't touch the oven and all that sort of thing. But I also think as we get adults, we learn a lot by failures as well. And it also seems to get people's attention too, because everybody likes to hear about a train wreck or pay attention to the story. So I wanted to share with you some personal things since we're all friends on World Product Day. And I want to share with you my scars of wisdom at Atlassian. How many of you have used Atlassian, Jira, Confluence, Trello? Oh, nice. Well, all are awesome. I was there for the IPO. You guys helped us with the stock, so thank you. So there's no clicker, so I'll awkwardly kind of dance around a little bit. But so the thing about Atlassian is it led me to my midlife crisis, and I'll be open about what that was. It wasn't a bad thing. But I want to share with you about Atlassian. So I started at Atlassian in 2014, and this story is all about feature prioritization, which I'm sure as product managers we all struggle with, prioritizing features. And so, has anybody heard of Atlassian HipChat? The instant messaging ping tool. Okay, there's a few of you out there. Slash. All right.
Sorry.
So, I got assigned to that in 2014. We're going up and to the right. Users are going crazy about HipChat. It's an awesome product to be a part of, growing super fast. What do we decide to do when we have instant messaging? And remember, instant messaging or instant chat at that time wasn't too strategic. It may be, Tatiana, I'll send you a ping about going to lunch. You send me a taco emoji. I sent you a Samuel L. Jackson, like, yeah, let's go to lunch. So it wasn't too strategic. It was kind of documents, right? What we decided to do at Atlassian, and it is an awesome place to work, so this is not speaking ill about them. We love the company. What did we decide to do? We decided our devs should focus on video chat. What happens down the street with Slack, with Stuart Butterfield? Stuart Butterfield comes out with Slack in 2014. What did Stuart Butterfield and that team decide to do with Slack? Well, we were way ahead of them already with HipChat. We've got a ton of users. We integrate with Jira. We're rocking and rolling. Are we worried about Stuart Butterfield? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he has been successful in the past. But what does Stuart Butterfield do? He decides his features, his prioritization is going to be on making it mission critical. So you're talking about DevOps, ChatOps, making it incident management as a solution, making it much more than tacos and emojis. It becomes very vital. He also, Slack makes it an onboarding experience. If you ever tried to onboard with HipChat, it was a little bit clunky. Slack, completely smooth. So why does this lead me to my midlife crisis? Well, how many of you use Slack, by the way? Yeah, I got it. Yeah, so we didn't do so well. This is October 2014. We're cruising. I just joined, and then we had a little change there. That's okay. But the whole moral of the story is feature prioritization wasn't the only reason that HipChat didn't do as well. They divested a lot of that intellectual property to Slack, and then obviously Slack has won that kind of the battle. But if Atlassian didn't have such incredible products in the past, it could have been really detrimental to them. But they had a lot of other things to fall back on. But if you're at a startup or different other ventures, product featureization can be, that prioritization is a really big deal. So I'll lead you to my midlife crisis. If you want to chat about Atlassian and my scars, I'm happy to share more with you. You've probably heard enough. This was my midlife crisis. This was last May at this exact time. I rode 776 miles in 14 days across from Miami to Bahamas, which you're saying that's not a big deal. Maybe you took your IPO money and went on a yacht. No, it definitely didn't have that much stock. Didn't have enough stock for a boat. I rode on a jet ski with my best friend. One of the world's longest jet ski rides, and it was as ridiculously awesome as you could imagine. So, anyway, that's me. Have you ever been, anybody been to Atlantis? You probably flew there, which makes a lot more sense. It was a great time. All right. So let's talk about product lifecycle management. How many of you kind of know this wheel in per se, as far as develop, introduction, maturity, and decline? Everybody knows the basic premise of product lifecycle management. Well, this is a key thing as we go along for feature prioritization, especially in the introduction. As you go from develop, you've got your pain point, your vision, personas, and competition. And then, of course, you move over to features and roadmap. So this is just the basics, just to level set with you all, some of the ideas of what we're thinking. And what we've done, as I mentioned, I'm an investor in ProductHQ. I did take a little bit of my stock money and I put it into a company in Charlotte, and I'm a really big believer in what they're doing. ProductHQ is basically a product management software, and in the spirit of not sponsoring this event, I don't want to talk too much about it, but we do want to recognize that all 4 of these things will make your life easier with our software. So we love North Carolina. We're headquartered here. If you want a trial or consulting, we are absolutely happy to help you. But just wanted to make sure for those AHA users who are a little bit jaded, you're paying too much, we're keen to help you. All right. All right. So let's move forward. So where do features come from your organizations? We would identify 6 kind of streams in which you're getting feature requests. Is anybody else feeling this? These are the basics here. I see a hand raised back there. Most of the time, one interesting, the 2 that I want to highlight out of this is product vision. And that's a unique one when you're talking about feature prioritization, because if you're Tesla, you've got to hold true to be sustainable or around that kind of vision. If you're Clean Juice, which is a health food company out of Charlotte, you've got to be organic. So that's kind of an interesting pivot in which your product vision is really, really important. The other one I think that's underestimated when you think about features is industry direction. So if you're in the telco business, you've got to really think about entertainment business now and how the mergers and acquisitions are happening. So this is the stream of feature requests that are coming in. You get a huge backlog from all this information. I want to talk about some ridiculous examples of bad prioritization, and then we'll talk about ice scoring here in a second. So what is this? This is Oakley. Oakley decided with their sunglasses, pretty good sunglasses, right? They decided, well, we want to get into the space of music and put an MP4 player, music player, into their sunglasses. Now, how do you think this worked? It was pretty bad. They spent a ton of money on this technology. Obviously, these are horrendously ugly. Nobody has these. But also the customer feedback to put an MP4 player into your sunglasses, it wasn't there. And they lost a ton of money on this idea. Also, just trying to be on front of an industry trend. Here's another ridiculous example. Jeff Bezos. Now, he's not losing any sleep over Amazon Fire, but does anybody remember Amazon Fire with the mobile phone? Yeah. This is a classic example of just being simply too late to the market for competition. Their big feature, their big idea was facial recognition with your phone. It's not really going to move the needle to be compelling. So I don't think Jeff Bezos is hurting for any money, but it was intriguing to think about feature prioritization and how that may be off or how they were late to the market. The last one. Now, this is a terrible picture. This is from the 70s, so give me a little bit of slack. No pun intended. So in the 1970s, Gerber decided, we all have baby food. We have a baby in 3 weeks. Congratulations to Dan. But Gerber Baby Food saw this trend in the 1970s of adults on the move eating. They're like, people aren't just sitting down anymore. So what did they decide to do? We've got this iconic baby jar of food. What we're going to do is we're going to put adult food into this baby jar, and you'll take it through your work. This has to be one of the worst ideas. Who wants to eat creamed beef, beef burgundy, or blueberry delight out of a Gerber jar as an adult? So obviously I'm shocked that it failed, but anyway, that's another prioritization that went awry. And then this one is Cheetos lip balm. So unless you're a 5-year-old, like my 5-year-old would like to look like that, it's a bad choice. So a couple of really ridiculous ideas. So prioritization, why is it important? How many of you are dealing with a new product or a relatively new product? Absolutely. The new product, discuss the problem this service and product solves and why it's important as a product manager. If you've got that existing product, it's really the feedback on what you can improve as your problem shifts and changes. This prioritization is really key for stakeholders. The stakeholders you're getting money from, and the stakeholders you're trying to influence. All right, I won't spend too much time on this, but I did want to highlight, and from a ProductHQ perspective, we have this thread that we believe as a product manager prioritizes. Product planning, feature management, and the roadmap management. If you cast your eyes kind of in the middle, feature management. This is that incredible amount of backlog that you have. And I'm going to start highlighting ICE scoring now as the way in which we would recommend, or as an option for prioritization. How many of you heard of ICE scoring? ICE scoring? Have you done that? Got a few names out. Before we get there, very, very simple, very, very important. This graph, no matter what you use for prioritization, keep in mind this. I've seen so many companies go wrong with this aspect, and I'm sorry that the screen's a little low for you in the back. The business value or the impact, the feature, has got to be high, but it's got to be worth the squeeze of complexity and effort on this bottom graph. You've got a finite amount of resources, finite amount of time. I can't tell you how many people get so ambitious to try to think of the home run of a high, but they just don't have the effort to do it, and they've run out of time to be able to have something completely compelling. So again, your goal is to think of, obviously, of the complexity effort that's low and the business value that's high. It sounds so simple, but this graph, this chatter plot, is really, really key. So I don't know how you're struggling with things on prioritization, but this is a principle that we always keep in mind of what we're doing. So ICE scoring, understanding ICE score, I stands for impact. This is a recommendation that we would have for prioritization. I stands for impact. So what's the impact of the feature that's coming along? C is kind of your proof pointer, your check and balance. C is confidence. How sure are you that this feature will prove hypothesis? It's your balance between impact and effort. And effort is pretty obvious. Most of the time, that actually means time, the amount of time it would put forward for effort or ease. I'll go through this. So impact. If you deliver this feature, how large is this impact to your business? Think about this from, a classic one, of course, is revenue, but we're also thinking about customer churn, cost, customer success. What about you all, if you're thinking about impact? What other variables can you think of other than beyond some of these points? Any thoughts on this?
Differentiation.
Market. Yep. So these are all things that you would collaborate if you have a backlog of 200 features. You're starting to get in a room and start to think of how would you rate this for impact. So each feature would have their score on impact. Each one would have their score on confidence. Again, confidence is that battle or that proof point. So you think this will have a major impact, but the reality is how confident are you? Do you have statistics to back it up? Do you have testimonials? Do you have qualitative, quantitative information? How many unknowns are there? Basically, has a customer done this successfully in the past? So we talked about Amazon Fire. They were just late to the market. They knew they could be successful, but they were late. So it's an intriguing one. It's the hardest thing really to score because there's kind of an emotional compelling component to it. And then last, of course, is effort. Time is the most popular measure of effort. And I'm going to bring this together in case you're a little confused here on ICE scoring. So this is really the scoring. You would go through one feature and you would rank it based on impact, confidence, and effort. he would rank each one from 1 to 10. So if each one was a 5 for impact, 5 for confidence, you're at 25, and then you multiply, perhaps your effort is a 10, so you might have a score of 250. Your ultimate score, your highest score, the higher the score, the better. The higher the score is what you prioritize. The highest score you could get would, of course, be 1,000, which would be a captain obvious that your company should be doing. But this is really, really key, and I want to give credit to a company called Growth Hackers. When you start a company or when you have a tremendous amount of feedback and a tremendous amount of backlog to figure out what to do, this will really narrow down about 95 to 98% of what you want to focus on. So you can really focus on the 3 to 5% after that. Does that make sense? The 3 to 5% you can prioritize using something else, and we probably would recommend that other than ice score. But this is a great way to get the team collaboration, take some of the emotion out of it, and make sure that everybody's inclusive on some of the decisions. Make sense? Again, we put this scatter chart, the scores into that business value effort kind of graph that I showed you earlier. So what are some of the problems with ice score? Any thoughts on this before I explain some of the challenges? Has anybody used it and felt it was really
Whose opinion is it based on? Whose opinion are your scores based on? Your own?
Yeah, so if you were, I'm not sure how your team would be structured, but normally this would be a collaborative effort where you would get together and Dan, Tatiana, and I would come together with what the future would be, and then you would talk about this discussion of impact, confidence, and the others.
Where's the voice of the customer in that?
Yeah, the voice of the customer really, a lot of times that would come from the confidence or the data. So you definitely, before your ice score meetings, you would have all of those data points with you. So your statistics, and then your kind of customer or qualitative, quantitative feedback, that comes into that too. I mean, it may be, like you said, that if your company is skewed to a few big enterprise customers, they would carry more weight. But there is some of that discussion in there. I guess some of the key things would be is, as with anything, you can be influenced before your ice score meeting that something should be more important, or team members who simply want to work on something may hang out and actually influence the score. But we find it an incredible way to be pretty inclusive instead of it coming down from management to say, you will do this. It's kind of it's an interesting way to prioritize things.
Do you have any suggestions on how to have that conversation with management if you don't have a score like this in place?
Like an influencer or a workshop? Or just coach, manager type discussion?
Like how to push back against executives that have been used to dictating?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I would think, and Curtis, you chime in.
I might pick up
because
on it.
you know this one. But I'll chime in, and then Curtis really knows what's going on, so that's why he's next and the keynote speaker. I mean, for me, a lot of this would come back from that data that you would have. So you always have to back up with the data, and then of course you should have a lot of feedback from those 6 different channels that are coming in. Just having a rational conversation, I would say. I don't know how rational your manager would be. Curtis, you deal with this every single day.
My favorite of the 6 channels is team members, but that's my thought. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Any more thoughts?
I'm just teasing that out there.
The other thing from this takeaway rice box, you'll see rice is also something that's come in. Rice would be reach. So you would think about the impact, whether that's international or a particular geography perhaps. Yes, sir, you have a question.
Just curious, what kind of units would you, I mean, if you want to calculate something like mathematically, what kind of units would you use? Reach number of 10,000 people, 9,000 people? Is that what you would use? How would you put in practice?
For reach?
Yeah.
Curtis, do you have any insight for reach? I mean, historically for me, this has been just based on geography, but.
Yeah. So, number of users, just how many users?
Impact?
And this may be something where if you want to do a subtle, I don't know, an A/B test, or you want to, if your app is really large and you've got a certain section you want to change, you may not be impacting a lot of the people within that, so you're looking at reach just as a component of that.
And if it's smarter reach, it's like this may be a small, well, this is where reach and impact kind of join together. You know, it might be a very important customer sub-segment that's very small, but it's really important customer segment.
if I could chime in to plug user voice again, they have a really cool perspective where they focus on MRR of customers. So customers are weighted in that sense based on revenue or some other factor as opposed to number of users. You might have 100 users at one enterprise, and it might affect all 100 just at that one company, but that one company might be really low value.
Right.
So they have a cool perspective of that.
Then how do you make an impact? Or what kind of units would you use? Impact,
For reach or
small,
impact?
medium, large, critical, how do you measure that?
I mean, some of this depends on the maturity of your organization based on who your users are, if they know their personas, are they influencers, all of that kind of thing. Is that sort of what your question would be?
Yeah, impact would be like high impact, low impact, is that what it is? Or is it on scale 1 to 10, what's?
Yeah. So reach would be the same variable. It's scale going through that 1 to 10 scoring, just like impact, confidence, and effort or ease. You just multiply it across. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
How does this overlay with the fact that not all problems, even if they're scored high, should be solved by that particular company?
That's a great question. Curtis? You flew in from Orlando, you know everything.
He was preempting my thought. Want to hand over now?
Go ahead. Very grateful for the time, and also I just want to share with you, we're planning on doing a workshop to kind of bring this together. If you want to stay around after Curtis's discussion, it'll be a lot easier with the beer that we have. I don't know how much you want to go for the 9%, but we have a workshop on ice scoring that will kind of bring this together. And again, our organization will help with some of the consulting and ideas for this sort of thing. But really grateful for your time. Let's go to Curtis.
So I guess I'm wearing an ambassador hat. Hello from ProductTank, Central Florida. So this is getting recorded. Hello guys, back home. There they are. This was a picture of us at our last World Product Day. We like to drink too, but we use champagne. A little bubbly. The girl right there in all white, she's a sommelier and an African Yoruban priestess, and also my friend Josie. And I said, Josie, you got to come help us do World Product Day 2018. So she had all these different bubbles from Italy and from France, and cost us a bit, but it was worth it. We had a good time. We're a relatively, I think, smaller meetup than you guys. I think idea for next year. We're probably half this size, I would guess. We have about, what do you have total? What's your meetup count right now? Oh yeah, okay. We're about 350, right? We started about a year ago, and I was telling Dan, sometimes we remote people in because if we don't have the talent, we'll find it. It's out here. People like Darrell. We'll bring them in through Zoom or whatever channel. So yeah, that's Orlando. Here's a little about me. Apologies for any of this. I don't know what's going to happen. I just told Dan the deck that I built for this evaporated on my plane flight up here. So I rebuilt it about an hour ago. So I don't know what this is going to be like. So this is not my customer journey. This is my career journey. Philosophy degree, Florida International University, 1989. My mom said, "What are you going to do with that?" She was right. It took me a while to figure this out. So I became an activist. I was a door-to-door campaigner for Florida PERD. You remember those people who come to your door and say, "Hey, help the cause"? That was me. They sent me to Orlando, Florida, and I was running campaigns, hiring and firing college students like crazy, and did that for a while, sticking it to the man. Then I became an entrepreneur, started my first business, and crazy idea. This is before the web. Fax was king. The ubiquitous communications technology of business was the fax machine. Crazy enough, it still exists, right? Who's faxed recently? But I don't know why it still exists, but right? You have a fax number in your card. So, so we had this publication called The Do Lunch News, and it was like in picture downtown Raleigh. I literally walked floor by floor. I was 26 years old, just crazy idea. I got everybody's business cards, and I built a database of fax numbers. And I said, we're going to send you the daily lunch specials. And then we had started adding on content. There was a limit because how many pages can you burn of someone's fax machine? And fax machines were single-threaded, right? Because once you're communicating the news, no other faxes can come in. So you can't do a 10-page fax. They would just cancel the publication. It was a free publication. And of course, what do you think our revenue model was? What was the business model? How did we pay for it? Advertising. Who were the advertisers? If it was called the Do Lunch News. Right, right. I really cut my teeth in business. We did everything wrong. We pivoted, and this is before we even called it pivoting. We became an event marketing company. Anyway, that was a great learning experience. It taught me a lot of tech, because I had to build technology to get those faxes out and to manage things. So kind of moved into the web era, did a lot of web development, and worked with some really great clients, and found kind of UX that way. I worked with a great company out of Miami called Smallco. Their specialty was UX. And that led me to realizing, why am I always the guy that's not only doing some of the coding, but I'm always one talking to customers, and figuring that there was just this kind of different role. And I said, oh, then I came across IIDA and the Business Architecture Guild, and started to realize there's craft, there's science, there's soft science around all of this stuff. And I started, oh, okay, this is cool. So I started geeking out from 2010 to around 2015. And then I got a job kind of as a product person for the first time with Coney, which is a mobile framework company. They're still around, but in the days when there was Windows, mobile, there was Android, iOS, and a few others, their value prop was write once, publish to all these different platforms. So I was a product owner in an agile team in that context. And today I'm a consultant working with a variety of companies on transformations like agile transformations, digital transformations. Tomorrow I'm teaching a class from 9 to 1 on product owning in an agile context. So I do that kind of work today. So that's my journey. Anyone have a similar journey, going, not from philosophy degree, but coming kind of from a tech perspective and going into product? How many of you have kind of the tech background? Yeah, a lot of us go that path. How many come from business or some subject matter expertise? Right. A lot of ways to get into product. That's what's so cool. That's what I love about ProductTank. We all can kind of find an intersection.
Midlife crisis.
What's that? Where's my midlife crisis?
Yeah, what was your...
Well, I see all these gray hairs. That was a couple of divorces ago. I took an RV across the United States. I have a cat still called RV because she was about this big, and she became my road warrior. I burned a lot of karma and a lot of tears on that trip. Tried every yoga studio for a year. Here's my midlife story. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a theme song for us tonight. It's all about decisions, right? Who likes salsa? I'm from Miami, Florida, and I'm half Cuban, so I like salsa, you know? So I gotta play some Ruben Blades. Decisiones. You ever heard that song? It's all about decisions. It's a good song. Decisions. We're trying to make good decisions, and it's so damn hard. Always trade-offs. The line there is, decisions. Someone wins, someone loses. Oh God, that's what he's saying. Some stakeholders win, some lose. And we're always in this position as product, right? We're faced with all these decisions. But let me tell you first, like when I first realized, okay, I think I know what a framework is for prioritization. The way I came across it was working as an agile product owner at Coney, and we were working with a marketing group. This is the website of the house. And there was all these features coming, and they were kind of prioritized. So, mostly were very, very important, but there was some less important, kind of a Moscow scheme. And we couldn't deliver. We were kind of in a feature factory, you know the term feature factory? And we're just trying to get stuff out, and it's not delivering. Now, and the message I would get from the coding team or the developers was, look, we got so much tech debt. Sound familiar? We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have all these things in place. And then I started to realize there's truth to that. And so my colleague, who was sort of the scrum master in the situation, I can remember going to a Panera, sitting down, this is one of those back of the napkin moments, and going, we have to figure out how to make the case to the uppers, the higher ups, that there's a different balance here. We can't deliver features unless we can redress all this other stuff going on. How do we make the case to them? So my buddy said, well, there's really 3 types of work we need to manage right now. There's these new features, there's tech debt we have to pay down, and there's like this infrastructure and these tools and these processes they need. And so we kind of said, well, yeah, what if we could color code them? And let's look. And so we said, okay, green will be features, red will be tech debt, and blue will be infrastructure and this other stuff. And we looked at everything going on, and all the work in process was bright green. And so we kind of begun to develop a story, and we went to the higher ups, the VP of marketing, and we said, what if we could slow down for a little bit? We'll have a couple sprints where it's going to be pretty red and blue, but then we could really accelerate the green. And they went, really? Yeah, promise. And we got close. We basically renegotiated, right? That's what it always is. It's a negotiation between different categories, different groups of people. And so that's my sort of wake-up moment. Like, that's what we need to do. We have to make a case for these trade-off decisions. And we can do that. So for us, we call it an agile. What is that called? When you do data, my friend in the back, the agile coach, when we get a data stream, we look at it, we visualize it, and put it in a public place. It's a
Value mapping.
information radiator. Good enough. Big visible information. So we started to radiate that information. All right. So there's a lot of approaches. Darrell did a perfectly good one. I love ice. Ice, ice, baby. You need a theme song, right?
I tried to avoid it. I wasn't sure the age demographic.
I know. But that guy's from Miami, so I gotta do that. Anyone play Prune the Product Tree? It's one of Luke Holman's innovation games. That's a fun one. Get users to put cards in a tree, and the ones lowest are the ones that are most important to them. Pretty cool. Ice. I won't sing the song. It's just an earworm in your head now.
You can do rice, and gravy.
Cost of delay. If you look at the Scaled Agile Framework, anyone working in domains where you're hearing this safe Scaled Agile Framework language, Dean Leffingwell, teams like that, that's pretty much how they decide how do we balance the epic in the portfolio. How expensive is it to wait for that feature? What is the cost of delay? Story mapping, teaching that tomorrow morning, teaching a product owner's class. Moscow, who remembers Moscow? Yeah, must have. What's the other?
Should have, could have, would like.
And we're not, you're right, and won't. Exactly. Opportunity scoring, I don't even know what that is, I just found it on the web. So let's put it up there. Buy a feature, another one of those agile methods. They're all good, they all have their place, and they all have similar flaws in I think in terms of some of the subjectivity that Darrell was talking about. If you have mature teams that have been doing this for a while, you can control for that. But I would say the more fundamental thing that I'm offering is a counterpoint. And this doesn't happen in most product tanks. Usually you have 3 different speakers and they're not really like bouncing off each other. But when you introduced me to Darrell, I was like, hey, let's talk together. So I don't want to, this is not against ICE. I'm just saying, let's talk about ICE, but give it a little bit of a larger context, all right? So let's just talk about it. I'll redefine maybe impact, confidence, and effort. And so these would be my what-if questions. What if, you know, we're not an existing product with stable users. We're a really new early days venture. Who are we asking? What if we're, as I work with a lot, a very demoralized team, loaded with tech debt, right? Like those teams I worked with before. Do they have a different voice in this? What if we want to take this product into a more disruptive territory? There's different contexts in which maybe the ICE scoring changes, or whatever framework you want to use. So who's familiar with the 3 time horizons and really this is about product, but also business cases, right? Time horizon 1, optimizing, this is really milking the cash cow. This is working what we have right now and maximizing for efficiency. You're going to add features, but mostly it's in the existing model. And we want to make some stretches. Maybe it's a fire phone or something, but fire phone was a very big stretch, but I wouldn't call it necessarily a disruptive play. The disruptive plays are your biggest time horizon out there, right? Horizon 3. That model comes from Lean Startup, Steve Blank. I think McKinsey was talking about this back in the day. I just think that is a different perspective we should keep in the mix. And depending on where we are and which horizon we're working in, maybe we have a different way of scoring those confidence scores. Because the farther out you go in that, where does confidence go? Right? We don't know. We're in a very experimental, disruptive space. So how do we treat confidence in that sense? Does that change the way we want to do confidence scoring? Impact is much more unknown. Also want to think about engagement. So you mentioned team members where we get some input too. I want to hear more from team members. You know, and agile and product teams that are moving that way, protecting the team and getting the team expertise is very important. Yes, we want to hear the users and the customers. Team knows something too. And sometimes teams get a little disengaged, and the statistics are pretty bad. This is from, I think, Gallup a couple of years ago. You know, 51%, this is just across all industries. So I'll just give you a thought experiment to think about engagement. What if this could be product A, product B, okay, business case A, business case B. One case, here's the ROI. It could be really good ROI in 2 years, cost us $500,000, pretty low risk. Business case B, same ROI, same time horizon, same cost, very risky. Which one would you do? Product A or product B? We'd all do A, and now everyone above us would be saying do A. But I'm going to throw a little difference in there, the E factor, engagement. What if business case A used the same old tech, it was the same old thing, it was just another sort of Horizon 1 move? But what if the teams were not empowered like WalkMe? What if they were really bummed because they haven't had a chance to try blockchain technology or do some of the other cool stuff they've been itching to do? And that's what business case B or product B would offer them. Something fun that they really want to sink their teeth into. It would be very engaging for them to do that, but still very high risk. And so for an I score, confidence could be very low in that case. So how do we balance these things? I do think companies are beginning to think through these fuller dimensions of it from a strategic perspective. Amazon talks about level 1 versus level 2 decisions. Most decisions from Jeff Bezos' point of view are level 1. The ones that can be reversed, we can back out. And they have such a good CI/CD pipeline, you know, just they can literally push in, push out features, right? I mean, they're in a position to do that kind of stuff. You know, moving a new Amazon office into New York is a level 2. You only do that once, you don't undo it. So they say, how do we just develop a bias for action, right? Fire phone, yeah, was a fail, but if you read Jeff Bezos' take on it, what they learned from the Fire phone, they plowed into everything else. And the people that worked on it were really engaged, right? So it's those trade-offs. Or Google, who heard of the rework study that Google did around Teams? Yeah, what did you find out? What was rework?
I'm not sure if it's a rework, but I know they used analytics in what made successful teams, and then what kind of teams drove the maximum impact and engagement.
Yes.
And then
What did they find?
Diversity, I think, in opinion and
Safety and diversity.
Yeah.
Psychological safety was one of them. They were expecting to find some of their best engineers, some of their best talent in those teams. And one of the big ahas for them was actually there was just really high-performing teams are the ones that had high safety, great morale, great team organizational processes. They were kind of meeting the Dan Pink criteria. Who's read Drive? Good book, go get it. It's all about intrinsic motivation, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Okay? Teams that get to own their space, that have some autonomy, have a voice in the product roadmap. They should have an equal voice. Should they or should they not? I'll put that out there. Should those teams that understand not only the effort, but a lot of the other things that they're working on, should they have a voice in the roadmap in some of these feature decisions? I guess that's what I'm asking and maybe making a case for. Companies like Bertsorg in Europe, it's a nursing company, reinvented their company and they pushed all decisioning as far down the tree, as far down the hierarchy as possible. So their product is almost this like distributed product roadmap across these different nursing collaboratives across Europe, allowing the people closest to decision making, in other words, the caretakers, able to have very much autonomy, have a lot of ability to make decisions. So autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So I think those are making those engaged teams, and I think that just goes back to ICE. My question would be, maybe I would say ICE baby, but let's enlarge our definition. Let's bring in those strategic, those multiple time horizons. So for impact, let's be tactical and strategic. For confidence, let's keep a bias for action. We need to take some risks as well, because sometimes risk has rewards. Right? Who's read Lean Startup? Right? Isn't that about taking risks, right? In a kind of measured, controlled way? There's a new book out by Albert Savoya. He kind of coined the term pretotyping, not prototyping, but pretotyping. His book came out a couple weeks ago. We gave it away as a freebie at our last Orlando event. Really good. It's about a way to put.
So much better than us.
No.
Books and champagne.
But we don't have wine. We don't have wine. So, yeah, we just use co-working centers in our downtown. So you got some cool corporate folks that are hosting it. So Albert Savoya is talking about pretotyping and lots of ways to try radical ideas, really out of the box disruptive ideas without a lot of effort and a lot of cost. And I think that's that hypothesis-driven, fast-learning culture where impact confidence efforts still matter, it's still important, but we're able to, if we have a potentially high impact, really not sure about this because it's really unknown and probably a lot of high effort, what's a slice of experiment we could take? Let's just try that pretotype. Let's put a pretotype out there.
Yeah.
Very fascinating concept.
That's a good point. The thing about effort, and just from my lasting experience, they already had a foundation of 7 really successful products. So if HipChat didn't do well, there's so much to fall back on.
Sure.
And so these huge organizations that are tangential and can let their employees kind of flow, they're able to handle these kind of risks.
Yeah,
and they can push that envelope, which is pretty incredible. So it kind of depends on the maturity of the organization as well, but yeah,
I agree.
it's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Or, this is my last thought, this I got from my son. He's 11 years old, he's a YouTuber now, and way ahead of me in a lot of areas. He can spin Rubik's Cube scarily fast. You know, cubing is back. It's a whole new phenomenon. It's called cubing, speed cubing. He can solve a cube in 15 seconds, and the world record is 4 seconds. So my kid's just kind of crazy. He humbles me every day. He says, Dad, and we were talking about something. He was trying to make kind of a prioritization decision. I was thinking more like an ICE. I was thinking all companies. He's like, Dad, let's just go RNG. What do you think RNG means? Random number generator. So he quickly Googles random number generator on Google and comes up with a way to basically, he comes up with this thing. Oh, I did it in the wrong order. It's called the random picker. So you just put your features there, feature A, feature B, feature C, and let the system tell you. Why not? Sometimes it can be just as good. Throw a little improvisation, a little spontaneity in there. So I'll just land on that thought. That's all I have. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
You got time?
you guys have been sitting here for about an hour. How's everyone feeling? Who's interested in sticking around for like a little workshop and trying this ICE thing? Awesome. If you're not, feel free to leave right now. I'll sit here and watch it. Yes.
I think everybody should take a bio break, get a drink. If you want to come back, you've got 3 minutes. I don't want to volunteer somebody to present, but does any group want to present their idea, their product, their product vision, a little bit of the high school? Anybody want to volunteer? All right, and I got Dan stepping up. All right.
3. So we are introducing a new product called Zumba. It's short for Zoom Bubble, which our product vision is to break the laws of physics while replenishing Mother Earth. So the problem is that personal travel, on-demand travel like scooters and stuff like that is not that cool. And so we can't get to places fast enough, we can't go long distance. But that gives us some market validation that people want better personal travel. So we came up with a jetpack that is fueled by plastic waste. Yeah, I would invest tomorrow. We have a really good prototype that's a little bit shorter than that, but I would invest in that tomorrow. So get out your wallets. So we went through 4 features. The first one was a plastic waste fuel jetpack. So our impact was pretty high, 7. Confidence, we weren't that confident that that's like possible. So our ease was 1. We tried to do an ease of 0, but if you multiply 0, then
Yeah.
so the score on that one was actually the lowest one. but the other three features were a 3D Waze-like navigation thing so that you can go through like space dimensions. And having that connected through an API, because APIs are cool. Finally, or the other two were celebrity voice navigation, because having Samuel L. Jackson telling you your navigation is pretty sweet.
Is somebody listening to Avengers?
I don't know who came up with it. I haven't seen it, so don't spoil it for me.
You'd have to have a vivid version for the kids for Samuel Jackson.
That's true. And then our fourth feature was, we thought that safety was kind of important, so an invisible force field surrounding this would be pretty cool. In general, the first item though, the highest priority was actually the 3D Waze-enabled API. So if we started with that feature, we could probably start with like helicopters or planes or something like a little bit more realistic. Underwater, that's a good one. Scuba diving.
Everybody needs transportation in the water.
Right.
Especially in the
Right, right.
Number two was the celebrity voice navigation because like the impact is really low, and two, the confidence of the user is pretty high because it already exists. Number three was actually the force field. We thought Prototype would be like one of those soccer bubbles that you can put on and run around in front of people that don't see us. Yeah, we should do that. And then the last one, so our scores were 168, 98, 45. So I think this one worked pretty good. Did I miss something?
I was gonna say, I thought it was surprising that like the cornerstone of our idea was jetpack and then the other was.
Yeah.
API feasibility.
Yeah.
Hopefully it was a fun exercise, but we can see potentially the applicability to other things. Other
We need
great
more
job.
time to work on the
Absolutely. Let's volunteer if anybody wants to step forward and. Great.
Yeah, thanks. We were a team of three. We came up with an idea called Right East.
Well, we had four, but one left.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, the idea of the product is to be able to help you to find students easily. And the emotional component was to, release the stress out of frustration from users, the pain points. And with the market validation, we know that there are companies like mine and things. And what's the other one? Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we kind of define the product vision.
Point is, it's product, it's manufactured and not.
Yeah. The features that we came up with for this product was basically the mapping and location identifier of those scooters. And we also kind of thought about the possibility of triangulation identification so that you have a destination where you're going and you are looking for a scooter, but if the scooter is located at the south and you're going to the north, how efficient is that going to be? So the triangulation is going to got confidence and ease for this particular feature. We gave it 10/10. Yeah, 10/10. And we got 1,000 score for that first feature. And the second feature, we also give it, the second feature was, what was the second one? The writing, I think.
Expect me to read my writing. That was the directional rule.
Yeah, then the direction. The route, basically. So swing by identify to be able to figure out how to get it. Directional route. So that one, so we gave it 10/10/10. We get 1,000 for that. That's 10,000. So with that, you realize that in a Scrum team, my developers will be happen to know that we need this feature right out of the door. And then the triangulation, we give it 10/6/5. You know, it's a nice to have kind of. And then the color coding is nice. Good stuff. Yeah, so we had 1,000, 1,000, 300, 300. So that's what we did.
Good job.
Hey guys, we're the beer team, and our product was the whole, and our team was very enthusiastic about our product. We had Aaron, Aditya, me, and where's the other Aaron? Oh, there he is. Yeah, and my name is Ann. So let me tell you about the whole. How many of you guys sleep here? In a show of hands. Oh, 30%? 30%, okay, 30% of you guys sleep, so that's good. But I think we could reach out to be 100%. So our product can be relatively useful to all of you guys. So as a sleeper, I would like to sleep or have the option to sleep on my stomach. But can I do that? No, because my bed doesn't have a hole, right? It's not like the massage, the massage beds with a hole. Have you guys tried one of those? It's nice. You could breathe, and that's kind of essential. So everyone sleeps, but everyone's forced to sleep in a certain limited positions, right? Not anymore, not with the hole. Okay, so our product vision today was to build the best sleeping experience and to accommodate all sleeping styles. And so one of our features was the you did better. Our first feature was the hole. Great. Our impact was 10. Confidence level, fairly easy. We just thought, hey, we'll just screw the hole, yeah. But then we thought, okay, actually let's think this through. Is it gonna be easy? And then we started thinking about, okay, but we have to actually dig the hole and make it breathable so that we're not just breathing into our own carbon dioxide and potentially passing out or something else. We don't want litigation in our hands. So we thought, okay, we need some research and thought process into this, so 5. So our score became 500. And then the next feature was the cork. Any wine drinkers here? Cork, as you can imagine, puts the hole, it goes into the hole and makes it into a normal bed. So our cork, the impact was 10, the confidence was 10, and we figured the ease would be 10 too once we figure out the whole part. Yes, you're right. So our confidence, so our ice scoring was 1,000. But it comes, the whole has to be developed first for the cork to work. The third one was variety, because remember our product vision here is accommodating the best sleeping experience. So varieties of sleeping mattress and stuff came into play. Impact was 3, confidence level 8, ease, it's already developed, right? 240, so that was kind of low. And then came our brilliant idea. Brilliant but hard to achieve. The automated porker. Yep, you heard it guys. If you guys thought, oh man, but what if I'm laying on my stomach and I have the need to, flip, and I just can't do that because I'm there, and now if I flip again, I'm gonna fall into that hole, it's just, it just complicates things a little bit, and then you have to get up and find the cork, and then, put the cork into the hole, and then it's just, that sleeping experience is ruined. So, what have we developed? With the automated porker, once you're moving slightly, the bed would notice that you're were moving, and it would slide, it would start moving a certain cover on the hole. And so let's pretend this is a hole. If I'm moving this way, it would start sliding in this way. And if I'm moving this way, it would start sliding this way. And then that way, the hole would be covered. Now, impact was kind of low, because we figured how many people are going to actually invest in this and purchase this if we figure this out? 2. Confidence? Yeah, we're not sure. 4. Ease? 1. Score? 8. So, pretty low. So that was our overall score. And would I score in WordPress? It depends, because we would really need to research out for reach and how it might be actually used. So it was relatively useful, but still more research and information is needed to make this relevant. So our product is?
Anybody else?
Alright, welcome. I hear we have some investors in here. Alright, sharks. Listen. Our product is called the Hover. Have you ever been in traffic and sitting there looking at that empty carpool lane and say, man, I wish I had friends? Driving that lane, then it's straight to work, no traffic. Well, problem's out. Now you will have forced friends. We will confine you guys to something called the Hover. This will fly over traffic. Think of airplanes, how they work now. This will be similar, but lower to the ground, right above the car. So you can look up and say, wow, I'm going to get the Hover. Next time you go to your car, you can say, I'm not going to pollute this earth anymore. I'm just going to call the Hover. So the problem is traffic, pollution, and time saving. The emotional component to this, quality of life, opportunity. So I live very far away because it's cheap for me. I don't have much income, and I don't have a car, so I have to work at the local places. But if I can hover somewhere, I can have opportunities to work somewhere else in a city that has actual companies. And it'll reduce my stress level, which improves my quality of life. The second thing is environmental responsibility. If we don't live to see the benefit of this, I wish I told you. Market validation. Within our 2-minute search for market validation, we came up with pollution is real. There is statistics in time travel, meaning how long do people spend in cars, and that is high. And the third is statistics on the population of people coming to RTP every day. People moving here every day. So that is great. Our vision here is reinventing the wheel. And our quote is, improve your quality of life by eliminating road travel and traffic with little impact to the environment. Feature set, transports up to 4 people. And the impact was 10. Confidence is 10. Ease is 6. The second feature is it is driven by renewable energy. Impact is high, with 10. Confidence is 6. Ease is 8. Third is ride sharing. So you have Uber, Ride, Uber Eats, Uber, whatever you want. We're just going to integrate with Uber and that saves the time. So it's just marketing. So obviously the impact is 10. Confidence is 9. Ease is 7. And then the last part is this will be made with recyclable materials. The impact is 8. Confidence is 2. And the ease is 10. And I don't know if that's invested more.
Anyone? All right. Hi guys. So we are the fourth transportation company, I guess, here. We're making flying cars. So Dan, your jetpack, Melissa will say goodbye to you from like up below. So the problem here is trying to get from point A to point B faster. And the emotional component also is fun, cool, right? And it's exciting. And you have time for other things to get somewhere faster. Market validation tools, things. So maybe this will work for you. The vision here is just make it faster and efficient and safer. Let's see, some of our features has to be autonomous, right? Because everybody's going to autonomous about us. The impact there is pretty high, right? Because now we are tracking people who want to do things faster, and you're giving them time to do that while they're going somewhere. So it's 10, confidence is 9, everybody else is doing it, and it's working, so it makes it work too. Ease is 5, maybe we'll have to figure out what it is. So we scored a 450 there. Speed, so if it's autonomous and if it's flying, then it has to go fast, right? So we want that to be another feature. The impact is high. Age, confidence, we're confident we can achieve that at 8. And it's easy, I guess. So it's 8. So we're at 5-fold with that. Non-fossil fuel is another buzzword, right? So impact, pretty high impact, well, pollution, it's like Melissa saying, it's a real thing, so we want to put that one back too. 7, confidence, 5, and as we can see, our scores keep going down. Ease is 3, so we're at about 105, so that's the lowest one for us. And well, the easiest of all, you need Wi-Fi. Right? No Wi-Fi, then yeah, it doesn't work. So it's 10,000. So that's the first thing we're going to work on. That's our product.
Oh, that was fantastic. Thank you all very much for this evening. If anybody wants a free trial of ProductHQ, just come by and see me. I hope this all made sense, and I appreciate you all just being enthusiastic. Dan, you want to close? Yeah. Tatiana?
Sure, I'll close over our slim down audience. Thank you so much for coming here. That was the most fun event I've attended thus far from ProductTank, from ProductTank. Very enjoyable for the speakers. If I would have attended this like nightly, a week, or a couple of years, I'm sure I would have been a master of product, or with a drinking problem. But we actually have a very good cadence, just perfect for you, for the ProductTank events. We have, every month we have an event. Usually on Thursdays, this time we went differently because we wanted to be a part of this great product celebration. But usually we're on Thursdays, and so every month, Thursday we have either a content event, similar to like what we have today, like happy hour, where we come in and we talk and meet new people and learn from each other in a very, very informal setting, somewhere around the area. So meetup page is one of our key places where you guys can register and watch for upcoming events. We also have a LinkedIn group. We have a LinkedIn sign up and follow our LinkedIn ProductTank company. We also have a site, ProductTank.org. And if you go there, you can see all the previous events, content events, recordings. We do not record our hours. That all works. Thank you for your time today.